Hey everybody, this is one subletter from T.F.P. Cichlids, and today I'm starting my new series on pedigrees. That's right, pedigrees. Well, what in the world are pedigrees anyways? Pedigrees is nothing more than a family tree. Now, this is going to be a series of videos because I would love for you to understand what pedigrees are so that you can use them for your own breeding programs, or even if you decide not to do your own breeding programs but buy fish that have pedigrees, you'll be able to understand what a pedigree is and the importance behind a pedigree. Now, this series is going to cover inbreeding, line breeding, and outcrossing. Specifically, T.F.P's Mega Man came from an inbreeding. His father and his mother, T.F.P's Onyx and T.F.P's Blue Dot, are half brother and half sister. Now, I took T.F.P's Mega Man and I bred him to his sister, T.F.P's Juice Box, to create T.F.P's Metal Man. And so T.F.P's Metal Man, he comes off of inbreeding also. Mega Man, his parents were half brother, half sister, and T.F.P's Metal Man's parents were 100% brother, 100% sister. So that is inbreeding. And inbreeding is when you breed close relatives, either a father to a daughter, a mother to a son, a brother to a sister. Now, for my purposes, I call half brothers and half sisters, when you breed them, I call that an inbreeding. So like in the example of T.F.P's Bolt, bred to his sister T.F.P's Honey Butter. They were both half brother and half sister. T.F.P's Bolt's father was Jade, and T.F.P's Honey Butter's father was Tigger, but they shared the same mother, T.F.P's Black History. And so for me, for my purposes, I call that an inbreeding. Some people wouldn't call a half-brother, half-sister inbreeding, but that's what I call that for my breeding. The next thing is you have line breeding. Line breeding is when you're still breeding within the same family, but you're breeding not so close relatives like an inbreeding. In inbreeding, you breed brother and sister, father to daughter, mother to son. But in line breeding, you breed a cousin to another cousin. You breed an aunt to a nephew or an uncle to a niece. And some people even include breeding a grandfather to a granddaughter or a grandmother to a grandson. They'd include that as a line breeding. So specifically, I bred T.F.P's Mega Man to T.F.P's GASOLINA to get T.F.P's Punisher. And T.F.P's Punisher comes from a line breeding because T.F.P's Mega Man was bred to his cousin. See, T.F.P's Mega Man's father, Onyx, was T.F.P's Buttercup's brother. You see, T.F.P's Buttercup and T.F.P's Onyx were brother and sister. So when I bred T.F.P's Mega Man to T.F.P's GASOLINA, that was a line breeding to produce T.F.P's Punisher. Now, the next type of breeding is called an outcross. So an outcross is when you breed a fish that has been inbred or line bred, that's been having a lot of breeding within itself, that whole family, and then you take that individual and you breed it to a individual that's totally unrelated to them or very distantly related to them, and that's called an outcross. And so I did an outcross when I bred T.F.P's Mega Man to T.F.P's Hot Stuff. As I mentioned, T.F.P's Mega Man's parents, T.F.P's Onyx and T.F.P's Blue Dot, were related. They were half brother, half sister. So that's an inbreeding. And so when I bred T.F.P's Mega Man to T.F.P's Hot Stuff was not related to Mega Man at all. And so Hot Stuff was a female that was off of Juani Olivo's Candyman and a female that I called Red Hot. And so that was the outcross. And so that's just briefly talking about the different type of breedings that there are. And now I want to talk about specifically why you even would do pedigrees. Now I have two reasons for them. One reason is to chart the family tree of your fish. And so it's important because sometimes when you breed and you start breeding and you go down a few generations, sometimes you can lose track of who the fish are that you bred. Because just to give you an example, if you breed a fish, it's not easy to forget. You know, you just say, oh, his father was this fish and his mother was that. But if you breed that offspring to another fish, now you have 4 grandparents. And you might say, well, yeah, his grandmother on his mother's side was this, and his grandfather on his mother's side was this, but the grandfather on the father's side, grandmother on the mother's side, I'm not sure. And you might get them mixed up, see, and so that's why it's important. And then when you go back to great-grandparents, then there are 8 great-grandparents. And that could really be confusing. Then when you go to great-great-grandparents, there are 16. And when you go to great-great-great-grandparents, you have 32. Then you go back from that 64, and so on and so on. And so you can really lose track of the fish that you've bred if you do not chart or write down their pedigree. So that's the first reason why you want to start writing down the family tree of your fish. But now another reason another way that I use pedigrees is looking into the future. Let's say I want to map out a breeding program. Let's say I want to breed a Dovi to a Feste, right? And then I want to breed that same Dovi, let's say, to, I don't know, a Managuensis, right? That's a plan. That's something that I want to do in the future, right? I have that thought in my head. It hasn't come to pass yet. It's a plan. And so sometimes it's good to chart it out. You write it down on a pedigree chart, right? And you say, okay, well, this is what I want to do, so let me write it out. And so what you do that just to give yourself a map, a roadmap to the future of what you're trying to create. And so you do what you have to do. You buy the Dovi, you buy the Feste, you put them together, you do your best to breed them, and they breed. And then you take that Dovi, and let's say you breed him to a Managuensis, right? And so you get those fish, and then you get the babies, and you say, okay, well, I want to breed the babies together. And so that's the whole reason why you make a pedigree, because in one pedigree, and I'm going to use that example, we're going to use a Dovi, a Feste, and we're going to use a Managuensis. And so we're going to create a breeding program right here, a bloodline. We're going to just kind of think this thing through, just to give you an example of why you would use it for the future. Now let's say I take a Dovi male. I'm going to use my fish. Let's say I took T.F.P's white fang, and let's say that I bred him to T.F.P's hot chili mama, right? I would breed him to hot chili mama, so that would be 100% Dovi bred to 100% Feste. And when I bred them, the offspring would be 50% Dovi, 50% Feste. And now, let's say I wanted to get an offspring off of that and breed that to, let's say, a female Managuensis. So I get my female Managuensis and I breed them together. And that would be one short little small pedigree. But you see how writing it down will keep, is helpful, because now I can just kind of check off when I go along and I'm following my breeding program. But, a lot of times you don't, and I'm going to discuss this in the other videos. I'm going to talk about inbreeding. Inbreeding is going to be the second video on this series. Line breeding is going to be the third video on this series. And outcrossing is going to be the fourth video in this series. And so, but in this one, I'm just going to go over, I already spoke about pedigrees a little bit, but now we're going to just kind of use the practical aspect of it, where we take a line or we use it as a roadmap for the future. And so that's what we're doing here. So I took my male Dovi, I bred him to the female Feste, right? I took T.F.P's white fang, bred him to T.F.P's hot chili mama. Now I get my hybrid male, my 50% male, and I get him and I breed him to a female Managuensis, let's say T.F.P's Black History. And so now those offspring that I produce they're going to be 25% Dovi, 25% Feste, and 50% Managuensis. So let's take that first breed and we're going to put that to the side. Let's just imagine that we bred those fish and we have those offspring in another tank, right? And we're growing them out. So good, I have that. Now let's say we took T.F.P's white fang and we bred him to T.F.P's Black History. And so now we have a 50% Dovi, 50% Managuensis. And let's say that we raised out a male from the 50% Dovi, 50% Managuensis, and we got the best looking one, the one that we liked, and we bred him to TFP's hot chili mama. We bred him to 100% Feste. That would produce a 25% Dovi, 25% Managuensis, 50% Feste. Okay, so that's what we did. And so now that we have these two separate lines, but related, now we can get those offspring and breed them to each other to create something. See, we're trying to create something, and we're just trying to see what comes out, and then we're going to select the best offspring off of that to continue breeding. And so we have from the first breeding, we have a 25% Dovi, 25% Feste, 50% Managuensis. So now we're going to bring these two lines together. The next line is 25% Dovi, 25% Managuensis, 50% Feste. And so we're going to get a male from the first breeding, which was a 25% Dovi, 25% Feste, 50% Managuensis. So we're going to get a male from that breeding, right? The best one, the one that looked the best to us, whatever it is that we liked about him. And we're going to get that male, and we're going to select the best looking female from the second breeding, which is 25% Dovi, 25% Managuensis, 50% Feste. And so now we're going to get those two, the best male from the first breeding, the best female from the second breeding, and we're going to breed those together to produce offspring. And so what happens is you're going to get a range of different traits, because you have Feste blood in there, Dovi blood, and you have Managuensis blood. You have get different looks. You'll get some that might look more like a Feste, some that look more like a Managuensis, or some that look like a Dovi, or you're going to get a mix of all of that. But you're going to get a variety of different options to select from. And so you get those two, you breed them together, and you get your babies. And so that is pretty much how you can use pedigrees for the future. You're using it to make a plan for the future. And that can be helpful because it can save you a lot of time. It can keep you focused, keep you on track. Because trust me, temptation is out there. Temptation is out there. All the beautiful flower horns people post, or the beautiful, escondidos, or maybe even like a Managuensis or a Dovi or something that we like, or some other hybrid, and we'll lose focus of what we're trying to do and go outside and bring other fish into our fish farm or fish, our fish room, et cetera, and that'll disrupt our breeding program because we'll stop focusing on what we were trying to do in the first place. And so that's what pedigrees can do for you in the future. And they can help you out because it'll give you a roadmap to the future. And it can help you to stay on track so that you don't lose focus on what you're trying to create. So that's pretty much for this first video. I know it's a short one compared to the other videos, but we're just getting started. We're talking about pedigrees. We're talking about inbreeding, line breeding, and outcrossing. And so the next video I'm going to be talking about inbreeding, and I'm going to go more specific as to what an inbreeding is, as I spoke about it today. I'm going to briefly go over that, but I'm going to tell you why to inbreed. So I want to thank y'all for tuning in to TFP Cichlid. This has been episode number 8, Pedigrees, a preview of pedigrees and different types of breeding. So stick around because next week is going to be jumping. Now we're getting into the nitty gritty. The first videos have been showing you what I've been doing and just showing you the beautiful things you can create. But now I'm kind of giving you ideas, and so that you can kind of know how to do it for yourself. And so that's pretty much it. So I thank you for checking my videos out. Make sure you like and write a comment below if you want to. Subscribe to my channel. Click that button. Press the notification bell so you can actually get when I post a video. And also go over to Facebook and friend me on Facebook. Friend me on Facebook. That way you can send me a message. We can talk. I've been talking to different people in different countries about fish, etc., etc. So I thank you for checking me out here on YouTube. Peace.